This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jasperson.
Well, the Prime Minister's on the record, so is the RCMP, saying that India is behind violence, a violent murder in Canada. We had a Real Talk guest talking about that months ago. We've also got the Prime Minister on the record telling a public inquiry that he has names of Conservatives, and Liberals and members of other parties as well, that have participated in unwittingly or otherwise in foreign interference. We got a whole lot going on in our own neck of the woods. Plus, just west of us yesterday, a mushroom dispensary raided by police. Dana Larsen owns it. He's going to be talking to us in 30 seconds. And we have the group chat roundtable back to break down all the biggest stories, including the looming elections in BC, Saskatchewan, and elsewhere. This episode of Real Talk is happening with the support of Alberta's top online real estate school. You can find them online at relo.ca. That's relo.ca, where real estate learning unfolds for the bold and ambitious. Wherever you're at in your career, they can help you find the next level. I love this testimonial we got a while back from JR, who wrote into the show and said, I love hearing your testimonials, Jasper, how your partners go the extra mile. JR spent their last year working on getting their commercial real estate license. They bought the course through somebody else. And long story short, JR failed the exam twice in a row. Was listening to Real Talk, checked out relo.ca, went through the course, and guess what? Passed with flying colors. Now experiencing major success in the real estate market with untapped earning potential. Be like JR and don't mess around with the others. Check out Relo online today at relo.ca. All right, we'll officially pop bottles and welcome Katherine O'Neill, Harman Kandola, and Jenny Adams to the show in just a quick second. But out of the gates, it was a story people were paying attention to. On the 6th anniversary of cannabis being legalized in Canada, a psychedelics dispensary raided in Vancouver, BC. It's owned by Dana Larsen, who's been on the show before, and he joins us again this morning. Dana, thanks for making time for us. Did you see this one coming, or were you caught off guard completely?
Well, you always expect there could be a possibility of some kind of enforcement like that. But no, it was pretty surprising. We got raided last year, almost like on November 1st, 2023. And there's been no charges, no conditions, nothing like that placed upon us. So with no charges coming from the last raid, I wasn't expecting them to come back again. That was surprising.
Okay, so you were, last time this happened, about a year ago-ish, approximately, you were arrested.
Yeah, November 1st.
November 1st of last year, you were arrested but not charged, right? You were not detained yesterday at all?
Not at all, no. Last time I spent several hours in jail. That didn't happen this time. I didn't go down I wasn't there that day when it happened, and I didn't go down. So that's why they didn't arrest me, I guess. But yeah, it's surprising because you'd think that they would have put charges on from the first raid. But that's what happens. The prosecutors don't want to prosecute because they don't really think it's worth their effort. But the police still have a vendetta against us. So they come back and it's really a form of economic terrorism, right? They come and take all your stuff, take all your money, don't press any charges, and you're left with a big mess to clean up. They're on a vendetta against us, and I'm not really sure why.
Okay, well, people are going to go, but come on, Dana. I mean, they're illegal. That's obviously why. You can't operate in a legal business and in broad daylight under the cops' noses. What do you say?
Well, that's true, but there's about 20 other mushroom dispensaries in Vancouver that haven't been raided. So we're the only one that's getting this kind of enforcement. I think that's an important consideration. The Vancouver police typically respond to the community's desires on this, and we have very strong support in our community. I don't think most Vancouverites want to see shops like ours shut down. And the fact that the prosecutors don't want to prosecute, the people in our community support us, you think that the Vancouver police would take that into consideration.
Dana, who's your customer? Like, who walks into the dispensary every single day? Give people across Canada a sense of who uses it.
It's all kinds of people. It's young people, it's old people, it's people who are Canadians, it's tourists. We have people come to our shop from Korea, from Japan, from China, from all around the world to come and see what we have and what we do. We bring people in from everywhere. But there's all kinds of people. Some are experienced psychedelic users. Others are people looking for some microdoses to deal with some psychological issues or depression or PTSD or things like that. There's a lot of medical users and a lot of people who just prefer to take some mushrooms on a camping trip than drinking some alcohol.
So where does this leave you? They confiscate all the mushrooms. They can give us. I mean, do they take cash? Do they take infrastructure? Give us a sense of what you're left looking at.
Yeah, they empty our store. They take all of our mushrooms. We sell other psychedelics too, like LSD and DMT vape pens and things like that. Those are all gone as well. They take all your cash and leave a big mess behind. It's very expensive, certainly, and causes a lot of financial challenges for us. And one of our biggest projects is called Get Your Drugs Tested. We run the world's largest and busiest free street drug analysis center. It's all funded by our mushroom and cannabis sales from our dispensaries, and this puts that project in danger as well. We'll be reopening again today. We got to restock and resupply and get things back in place. We try to reopen again the next day whenever possible after one of these raids and just keep things going.
Do you expect to get raided again? I mean, could they raid you again tomorrow?
They could come back tomorrow. That would be unlikely, I think. They've done their work this time. It usually takes them a while, but yeah, they could certainly come back tomorrow. They could come back every day, and if they do, that makes it very, very hard to stay in business.
Yeah, I would imagine there's obviously a financial toll that this takes, but at the end of the day, does this do more for your cause? Like, does this do more to further conversation on legalizing psychedelics or other applications of what a lot of people are looking at as a mental health treatment right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather not get raided, but certainly you try to take advantage of the publicity and of the situation and then what comes out of it. It's all part of the process towards legalization, right? I mean, I was very involved in the cannabis dispensary movement pre-legalization, and you'd see raids sometimes from those things as well. Although I'll say, we operated our unlicensed cannabis dispensaries for over 10 years and never had any kind of raids until post-legalization, right? So the police do have options. They typically don't make these kind of raids. There's a lot of other mushroom dispensaries in the city. We're the only one that's getting hit. I think it's because I'm outspoken. I go on the news. I talk about this stuff. I'm the most public figure when it comes to running these kind of shops. I think that makes the police upset. Our lawyer said the cops are choked because the prosecutor won't lay charges. And so they're taking it into their own hands to push this themselves.
Thanks for making time for us, man. We got a whole roundtable here that's going to get into whether or not we think shrooms should be legalized in Canada. So appreciate you driving.
It's coming. We're gonna change the laws on mushrooms and psychedelics the same way we did on cannabis, and it's all part of the same process. And ultimately, we're gonna win.
Hey, do you think it was a coincidence that it was on the 6th anniversary of cannabis being legalized, or no?
It's hard to say. I don't know, but it's a very strange situation, right? 2 days before a major election here, that also might be part of it as well. Maybe they're trying to curry favor with the possibly incoming conservative government. We'll see. But it is an irony there, certainly, that 6 years to the day after cannabis legalization, they're coming after our mushroom shop.
Thanks for doing this, Dana. We appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you got it. You can check out mushroomdispensary.com for more on what Dana does, and you can follow him on Twitter at Dana Larsen. Jenny Adams is the principal at the Adams Agency. Harman Kandola, a lawyer, board chair at the Newcomer, what's it called again now? They rebranded.
The Newcomer Center.
Newcomer Center. Thanks, Harman. And, of course, regional president for the World Sick Organization, Katherine O'Neill, the CEO of YWCA Edmonton, a Real Talk editorial board member, and, of course, a longtime Globe and Mail journalist. What are your journalistic gut instincts tell you about this story? What do you make of what's happening with Dana?
It is really weird 2 days before an election for something that high profile to happen with the police. Normally you don't see stuff like that happen. So yeah, that's where my first thought went. I thought that's odd during an election period for the police to be making a statement like that. That's really weird.
Huh. If you were advising, if you were doing crisis comms for Dana right now for his business, would you be saying go on Real Talk, or would you be saying quit going on Real Talk?
No, totally go on Real Talk. Like, what does he have to lose? It's already it's funny because it's an illegal business, so it's hard to feel bad for the person. However, psychedelics, there's a lot of research that has gone into it in terms of mental health. I think the U.S. the FDA almost approved MDMA this summer and then backed off on it. And I'm hoping that further, research and everything does happen so that we can access some of these more natural things to help with mental health. So I'm not necessarily on this guy's side, but I do think that he does have a good cause. And, I don't know. It's interesting.
It's always interesting to talk to people that are kind of like ahead of the curve on businesses or industries that they're like certain will become legal, but are not currently legal. Do you know what I mean?
It's a bizarre thing.
But not under Pierre Poilievre. If Pierre, 5 years down the road, it's going to be a tough slog.
If anything, I bet some people are wondering if cannabis would be recriminalized.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Like, I think that it would be.
That's my thought.
So economically disruptive, including with a bunch of conservative investors. I can't imagine him doing it, but I wouldn't expect him to legalize shrooms. That's for sure.
Exactly.
But on the flip side, under the UCP, conservative government, they have legalized the ketamine clinics in Alberta. So, I mean, that is research, it is tested. So I was surprised that they did that. So maybe they won't touch it.
Can people purchase ketamine to
You
use
can't
recreationally?
No, but you can
under
have the
medically
treatment.
Okay.
supervised.
You can get a referral. You can see a psychiatrist. There's ketamine clinics in this city.
Yeah. Do you share Dana's conviction that one day mushrooms or psychedelics will be legal in Canada, Harman? What do you think as a
In
lawyer?
your experience, Harman.
In your experience, as a guy who just loves
doesn't drink,
shrooms,
Harman.
Yeah, for the record, absolutely. Yeah,
You love Red Bull.
Don't do it. Yeah, I love Red Bull. That's kind of the extent of any type of pick me up I take. But no, I think the inevitability is absolutely there. The pathway that you saw with cannabis shows you the roadmap that it takes. And so far, I think Jenny's kind of touched on it, which is, the research and the medical research which supports kind of the path that they're on. And, as you kind of move forward, there seems to be a lot of demand and desire amongst a huge demographic for this type of treatment and alternative treatments. So definitely seems like the roadmap is already there.
Okay, hey, first of all, as a teetotaler, Harman, I'm happy to let you know that courtesy of our friends at Vine Arts on 124th Street, we managed to find de-alcoholized champagne.
Yeah.
So
Better
I'm
enjoy
going to
it.
hand this to you
Enjoy
so
it.
I don't spill it on the table there, but I want to officially welcome you guys. This is just a bit of a fun tradition we have on the Real Talk group chat
This is
roundtable.
how Ryan gets us to spill all
And
of
that's how
our
he
secrets.
pays us,
It
too.
is.
Yeah.
That is how you're
Exactly.
compensated. People like transparency, and that's what we're providing here as well. We have
One
a bit of a
sip, loose
spread out.
lips.
Our friends at Friesen Brothers helped us with a bit of a
Love
bit of a
Friesen
welcome
Brothers.
spread in the green room because we have a bit of a big shot TV star coming in
Ooh,
today.
yes.
Bryan Baeumler's going to be joining us.
He's a little jealous that I'm on before him.
Oh, is he?
Usually he's the star.
Yeah, he
so.
wants to be lead off. Well,
Yeah.
I always had to remind now Senator Charles Adler that where you are in the show does not indicate how valuable you are to the show because our shows kick ass from top to tail. Look at this. The CBC reporting that BC has smashed an advance voting record, more than 1 million advance ballots cast, including almost 250,000 voting in advance on Wednesday, breaking a single-day record set the day before. Dana goes, with the possibly incoming Conservative government. Have any of you been paying close attention to what's happening in BC, and are you expecting David Eby to lose his job as Premier?
I have been, because I'm such a election nerd. I think it's going to be neck and neck. I think coming into it, it looked like that the Conservatives were going to win this because they had all the momentum, but the NDP have definitely caught up. I was saying before we came on that I just love that they have a Saturday election. They make it easy for folks to vote there. It's the second time they're going to the polls on a Saturday, which is the only, I think, province in the country that does that. But I don't think anyone knows for sure who's going to win this one. It's going to be right down to the wire for this.
Yeah, the NDP, I think, working to sort of paint John Rustad, the Conservative leader, as like a conspiracy theorist, basically talking about like kids eating insects and denying climate change and that type of thing. Do you see it working? It seems like in this era of politics, that kind of thing is not necessarily an effective tool, considering who some of the front runners are, contenders in elections in Canada and the U.S.
Well, I just don't think you can look at this BC election without talking about the complete capitulation of like the BC Liberal leadership. My big question is who I still want to understand. I want to see a Netflix series on that branding exercise from going from the BC Liberals to BC United. Like, who was the culprit in the room? Who was that consultant? Who was that Jenny Adams who told them that this
It
was
wasn't me. Actually, I don't want to bring this up, but you did fire me from branding your last campaign.
Is that true?
Yes, I was a volunteer. I got fired, and he lost.
This was
This was Harman's
campaign for city council
Yeah,
in
it was.
2021.
Yeah.
I don't recall it that way. I don't remember.
I was a volunteer. I was in retirement.
Are you considering running again for city council?
I think people want to see how things start to unfold when it comes to municipal
Wow,
parties.
not a no.
He's a sucker for punishment.
No,
I am not available.
Jenny promised that she would do the branding this time, and I promised not to fire her. So.
But you might not. You wouldn't need to hire unless Jenny's branding the party, because this is the whole thing.
I
now.
guess the rules and regs come out today, everybody.
Yeah,
so we've been waiting on the province.
Yeah, and there's rumors that there's going to be funding available for these political parties, and you have to wonder. I was talking to somebody yesterday, I would never break their trust, but who would be a formidable candidate who's trying to figure out if they're going to do it, and if so, if a party is the way to do it, or if you run as an independent. I said it's really tough to get the lay of the land right now because we don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know the rules of engagement, but I imagine it would be tougher for independents than it would people affiliated with a party machine for design and funding and organizing, you know?
Until we see the rules, we don't know, but we know that the province is definitely going to make this so it succeeds. They're not going to set themselves up for failure. So very interested to see how it goes. Obviously in Edmonton, if you're forming a conservative party, you're probably, damned if you do before you even get out of the gate. So it's really interesting to see. There's a couple different groups who are forming parties right now. They're fairly centrist and one kind of conservative one. But I don't know. I don't know what the strategy is. We're talking about it all the time.
The Doug Main one isn't, though. Is it called PACE?
That's quite conservative.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah,
I thought
that's the quite conservative
I thought
one.
you said centrist.
No, then there's the Jeffrey Hansen Carlson Tapyeg. That's pretty centrist. And then there's the other ones that we won't talk about. But nonetheless, it's going to be really exciting to see.
I saw Jeffrey Hansen Carlson, who's been on the show before, the founder of Tapyeg, this party, throwing bombs at this downtown plan that was released just the other day, which was sort of
because he wasn't included.
But it was
the history.
You're throwing bombs at everybody. You're throwing bombs at like BOMA, which is all the sort of the commercial operators. You're throwing bombs at the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce.
You're throwing bombs at the Adams Agency because I'm also part of the downtown. Yeah, just kidding,
Jenny's
Jeffrey.
Really
I haven't even had a sip of this
get her
yet
some more
today.
coffee.
Wow. Vamp says, see, Jenny Adams should be Edmonton's next great mayor. She
Which one of you?
She even pours the host a drink. Talk about caring for your voters. Meantime,
leaders eat last.
We don't mind reading the criticism as well. It's what gets the good conversation going. Goose says a week on the show of chatting about alcohol and the problems it causes, just to be wrapped up with 8:30 a.m. drinking on camera and hating on naturally grown mushrooms. Number one, I don't know who's hating on mushrooms. I love mushrooms.
Yeah.
Mushrooms are
changed my life.
The best mind-altering substance on planet Earth. Number one, don't eat mushrooms, kids, and everybody. Whatever, take this with a grain of salt. Talk to your doctor and the whole 9 yards. But I'm not hating on them at all.
It, just
and
being
then number
realist.
two, I think that we just normalized de-alcoholized champagne for our pal. We were considerate with that. And 8:30 a.m. mimosas, if that's against the law, lock me up and throw away the key. That's what I have to say. Anybody think that Scott Moe is losing his job in Saskatchewan? I was just out there for family Thanksgiving. There's road signs, obviously, billboards, placards everywhere for this election. In the neck of the woods that we were in, it was all Saskatchewan party.
No, not at all. But it's really interesting to see how the NDP are making it very competitive. Carla Beck, their leader, is really popular. I was hearing that her favorables are like 58%.
I like her.
Yeah, so they haven't been competitive for a long time, so I don't think they're going to win, but to make it as competitive as they have, that's interesting. And it just shows that I think that the Saskatchewan party, they've been in, this is, I think, their fourth, fifth term. That happens to every government, and it just shows that if you don't stay on top of things, it gets more competitive.
It was August 11th, 2022 that Carla Beck joined us on Real Talk. If people want to jump back into the archives, I recognize that's like an eternity ago, but we had a nice chance to talk to her for like half an hour. Jean Charest on that show as well.
Interesting. I see that.
Oh yeah, by the way, punching a bit outside our weight class. Anybody else see a different outcome in Saskatchewan? More of the same. Is you're going to have this like conservative kind of interesting block across Western and Central Canada, which may not be anything new, but it maybe makes things interesting when you take a look at the federal political dynamic as well. We had the federal energy minister on the show just yesterday, Jonathan Wilkinson, joining us, responding to Danielle Smith, suggesting that Justin Trudeau should call an election if he's so confident in his emissions cap and everything else. Wilkinson talking about, basically why they think that that's important and what's going into putting that proposal together and ultimately what the climate plan is going to look like going into the next election. Is there any saving the fate of the federal Liberals?
I don't think so, but I really am asking you, why is Trudeau so confident? Why is he not stepping down?
Well, what's he supposed to do? Kind of like
step down.
Oh, I see what you're
saying.
You're
not
why
saying,
isn't he? You're not saying drop his voice down.
No. I'm just saying. Well, I'm just saying. Why doesn't he? Does someone know why he won't step down, Catherine?
No mystery. It's so confusing because all the polls everything is showing they're going to be not wiped out, but severely decimated.
Like 4 cabinet ministers stepping down today or yesterday?
Or not cabinet ministers, but I think caucus members for sure. Was it
ministers?
Oh, ministers.
Jeez,
Yeah,
you got this cabinet shuffle coming, 4 more
well,
stepping down.
Yeah, this is the mystery. We talked about every time we're on the show, we're like, what is happening? And the caucus looks like they're stepping up, but it's a little too late at this point. Like, holy, you're way too late.
It's Marie-Claude Bibeau, by the way, National Revenue, Carla Qualtrough, Sports, Flamina Tassi, Economic Development for Southern Ontario, and Dan Vandel, Northern Affairs. He's the one that was throwing grenades at Charles Adler a while back.
We've talked about this before, though, right, on the show with Philippe Fournier. Nobody gives up that big seat, no matter how hot it gets.
Yeah.
Joe
Nobody
Biden
wants
did.
to give it.
Joe Biden did.
And Canada,
he did, though.
He did.
It's a good. Biden did, and you're right. A lot don't, but it's kind of interesting when you hear people say, "Who was it that was like on a couple of weeks ago that said Trudeau's probably experiencing what Stephen Harper did with Justin Trudeau in 2015, going, I'm not going to lose to that guy."
Andrew McDougall.
It was Andrew McDougall.
That was a great interview.
Good poll, KO.
Totally. I mean, he wants to go head to head with this person. But the other thing that I am so confused is that their fundraising has really dried up.
The Liberals?
Yes, the Liberals. And they cannot wage an effective election against the Conservatives with how what's going on.
Wouldn't Mark Carney be great?
I don't even...
I don't know. I'm just pulling out any.
I would roll the dice right now if I was a Liberal. I'd be like, roll the dice.
Okay, but so as a Conservative in Alberta, self-professed, you say, what would be the argument? Like, are you just saying Carney in kind of a cynical way because that's what everybody says right now, or do you actually think they could build something around him?
I think that they could build maybe something more than they could build around Trudeau.
He grew up in Laurier, you know that, hey?
No, I didn't.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes. In a relatively affluent central Edmonton, central west Edmonton neighborhood.
Yes.
Yeah. For context, for our international audience.
So he grew up in Edmonton. They have to do something. I cannot imagine them going to the polls. It will be Kim Campbell type decimated if they do not figure this out. And even a year ago, it was trending this way. But now this is like, pull the chute, get out, figure something. It's unreal. And to see these many experienced hands just bailing, you gotta do something if you are Trudeau.
I have a question for our guest, and I asked this yesterday to you, Ron. Do you think this foreign interference thing, is this Trudeau's ace in the hole? Like, is that going to do anything?
We'll tee this up on the other side of this break.
Yeah,
nice hook. I like
beautiful.
that. Yeah, like, could this be the game changer? John, you asked me off camera yesterday. You said, is this his Hail Mary? I said, it's not a Hail Mary. We still got a year to go, but how strong is the card he's playing? We'll find out. Ed, by the way, in our live chat on YouTube, what's up, Ed, says, but who would replace Trudeau to give the Liberals a better chance? Biden had a solid replacement. Anybody else that can be a candidate wouldn't necessarily be their best foot forward for the party. That from Ed.
But no one thought Kamala Harris would be a good replacement. Let's go back and replay the tape. Nobody thought. Everyone's like, she's not ready. She wouldn't be good enough. And she was fine. Like, look what she's done.
Well, we'll find out if she's fine.
Yes.
Just, can I say something quickly before we go to the break? Did you see Trump's rally like a couple days ago where he played
November
his Spotify?
Rain.
He played his Spotify playlist for 40 minutes and was dancing.
He's polyamorous.
Like YMCA. But this is what
that's trending on I think it's on TikTok. So I love that though.
But it reminded me of, when we went back to when KO was the president of the PC party.
Please not.
Remember, and Jason Kenney was running for leadership.
The former president.
Sorry,
of the PC.
but
sorry, KO.
we had a debate, and we set up the questions of the debate because it was Jason Kenney and I can't remember
Richard Starkey
and Byron Nelson, and we were asking these questions just to get Jason Kenney, put him on the spot. We can admit it now. And one of the questions we asked was, what was the last concert you went to? So there was like Nicki Minaj and George Strait, and his was a Filipino opera. Yeah. Remember that? That was his answer.
And the other question was to ask him, where does he buy his groceries?
Yeah.
Like, does he go to Safeway? Does he go to, Sobeys? Where does he go? Does he go to Superstore? Does he go to Costco? Local convenience store.
Or I thought maybe it was his mom who did the grocery shopping for him. Anyway, maybe we would have exaggerated.
Local convenience store, I remember that.
Yesterday was the anniversary, October 17th of Gord Downie passing. May he rest in peace. And I remember the day that Gord Downie announced, or the band announced, that he had the tumor and that he had this form of cancer. It was obviously it felt like a day of mourning across the country. And I was interviewing Jason Kenney on my terrestrial radio show that day. And so we were coming in and out of breaks with with Tragically Hip songs. I'll never forget this. And so we come back from a break, big day in Canada. We got a big interview coming up, and we come back with Bob Cajun, one of the great all-time hip songs, and I welcome him to the program, and I say, welcoming the Honorable Jason Kennedy to the show, and I endeavored to find that kind of real-life moment. So right out of the gates, you always like the little rabbit punch out of the gates to just hit him, right? And so I say, we welcome the Honorable Jason Kennedy to the program. What's your favorite Tragically Hip song? And he goes, that one. This conversation's happening with the support of our friends at Friesen Brothers. I visited their West Edmonton, their Glenora location yesterday evening. Wanted to roll out the red carpet for these three, and of course Bryan Baeumler as well. Went and picked up one of those fresh fruit platters that was ready to go. We've got these mini versions of their sourdough cinnamon buns. Nobody wants to crush a huge cinnamon bun and then step on camera, right? Friesen Brothers has both options for you if you want to crush the big one. You'll never look back. You won't regret it. Friesen Brothers has you covered on the takeaway options, the ready-to-heat options, and of course all the fresh produce, Alberta proteins you need to create your own masterpiece. You can find them online at friesen.com and in 17 different Alberta communities. Our friends at Complete Care Restoration, we're so proud to be partnering with them right now as they have team after team deployed in Jasper and Hinton working to get homes and businesses back open in that township. They've got more than 25 years of experience restoring property, rebuilding peace of mind. They're not just in Jasper right now. They're still in northern communities working to get folks back in action from last year's wildfire season. They treat every project like it's their own, and we recommend them. You can find them online at completecarerestoration.ca. And if you're looking for work, you have experience as an electrician, as a solar installer, if you've worked in sales, HR, office management, Kubi Renewable Energy is scaling up their team right now as Western Canada's busiest and fastest growing solar installer. They're putting out the call for those that want to join a young, dynamic, growing team helping to transform Canada's green energy movement. You can find the careers link online at kubienergy.ca.
I don't mind the Trump dancing, but I will say as a DJ, I was appalled, and I'll turn on their mics because they're laughing at the playlist. What is going on?
Like, do you have it in front of you?
Oh God,
Ave Maria,
Sinead O'Connor,
November Rain.
Could you imagine being in that?
November Rain and then I was went down a rabbit hole. Is his favorite video. Is November Rain.
That's
and
he
gave
video.
an interview once
that's
about
a good video.
It's a great video, but now it's wrecked it for me.
But I don't mind the dancing. Like Kamala Harris does her own share of dancing. It's just it's better when you've got Beyonce or something with a beat.
But for half an hour,
her,
though, okay, maybe it was 40. Wow.
But what do you think? What was going on there?
I don't know. And she's tried to paint him as like he's losing it. But I'm like, really? Is this the first time we've noticed he's losing it? No.
He's not losing it either. I think he's
very strategic.
There is really a real chance he's going to win. And I said that if the Senate goes, Congress goes, and then he controls the Supreme Court, this could be a wild ride.
What do you think? What does this mean for Canada? Everyone's got their own predictions. We'll find out on November 5th who's right and who's wrong. But ultimately, even for our more local audience, let's say in Western Canada, you could be looking at Premier Danielle Smith, Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre, and President Donald Trump. What does that look like to you?
I think Andrew McDougall, who was a guest previously, said it best that if Trump wins, that helps Trudeau. They are hanging on for that.
Yeah.
Because I think that will be just a shock for the world that this guy gets another term, and who knows, there's no guardrails anymore. The guardrails are off if Trump wins. And I think that really will help Trudeau, and that's maybe what they're waiting out for. They're waiting for that November date to see what happens. It's coming up. But it's going to be chaotic either way, whoever wins. You're going to have and that's historic. First woman president, black woman president. How exciting. But that's going to be chaotic because there's a whole other side that is not happy with that. If Trump wins, that's chaotic. So it's just a wild ride for everyone, no matter what the result is in November.
We'll have to invest a lot more in our military if Trump wins, right?
Yeah, for NATO.
Yeah, but I was listening to an interview this morning about, I don't remember if it was the governor or whoever in Florida, talking about, it was Santos, talking about the abortion and the law that they're trying to pass. And in it says a medical professional can give an abortion. So they're like, well, what do we want? Massage therapists giving abortions? And they're going down, do we want physiotherapists giving abortions? And this is It is unbelievable, and this is what, in 7 or 9 different key states, that these are the issues, that abortion is really going to be the thing. I mean, as it should be, but I can't believe the arguments that they're giving, and people are actually like, yeah, we don't want massage therapists to have the like, really?
Really? We're talking about abortion in 2024, folks.
Ken in the chat. By the way, there's two Ken Ks. So this is Super Chat Ken, who says if Trump wins and actually did impose this tariff plan, he says, which I doubt, it could be disastrous for both Americans and Canadians. Says Trevor Toom, the economist, estimates a 10% tariff would cost every Canadian about $1,100 a year. Ironically, we saw non-Super Chat Ken, the other Ken K, kicking in on the Super Chat with the $4.20 donation. I see what you did there, Ken, and I like that. I appreciate that. The Prime Minister, Johnny, let's load this up. Justin Trudeau talking to a public inquiry on foreign interference. And I don't know if I say he dropped a bomb. It felt like a bomb. We'll get these three to assess it, but this was Justin Trudeau just a couple of days ago.
Because I am Prime Minister and privy to all these informations, I have the names of a number of parliamentarians, former parliamentarians and or candidates in the Conservative Party of Canada who are engaged or at high risk of, or for whom there is clear intelligence around foreign interference. And I have directed CSIS and others to try and inform the Conservative Party leader to be warned and armed to be able to make decisions that protect the integrity of that party, of its members, from attempts at activities around foreign interference. And the decision by the leader of the Conservative Party to not get those classified briefings means that nobody in his party, not him, and nobody in a position of power, knows the names of these individuals and can take appropriate action.
So then, under questioning from the Conservative Party lawyer, Trudeau goes on to acknowledge that there are Liberal affiliated names and names from other parties that he's been made privy to. It's got a lot of people wondering, when's Pierre Poilievre going to explain to Canadians why he's not getting that security clearance to be briefed on all this stuff? How significant is this? What do you make of this, Harman?
So I think this is an issue that all Canadians need to start to pay attention to, not just Canadian 6. We have to remember that the Indian government is targeting democratic institutions here in Canada. They've interfered in our past 2 elections. They interfered in the previous Conservative Party leadership campaign. And I think one of the things that people need to understand, even about that testimony, is that unless Canadian 6, unless the World Sikh Organization, along with some partners, had petitioned the Foreign Interference Inquiry to include India, we would not even be talking about this at the commission and the inquiry. The Conservatives had blocked having India added as one of the nations that is engaged in foreign interference. And again, all of things that would offend Canadian 6, we understand the impact and the extent of what India is doing. We saw the assassination of Shahid Hardeep Singh Nijjar in BC, but the revelations of this week demonstrate a much larger effort and clandestine efforts for the Indian government to surveil, to extort, to undertake through proxies campaigns of violence in this country, attempts to destabilize our country, attempts to show that Justin Trudeau is incompetent when it comes to clamping down on criminal activities. And I think finally Trudeau has had enough of the Indian government's attempts to interfere, and it's finally taking a strong stand. And I think the Canadian Sikh community has welcomed this opportunity for him to show some leadership. After last year, after he stood up in Parliament and had announced that there was credible intelligence to support that the Indian government was behind the assassination of a Canadian citizen, Trudeau has been particularly silent. He's let the RCMP do their work, gather their evidence, and be able to make a case against people who were working in the Indian High Commission. And what you've seen over the last few years is that the Indian High Commissioner has gone on tours of this country. They've gone to try to placate Canadian institutions. Sanjay Verma, who has been named in a lot of the conversations around Indian interference was here in Alberta not too many months ago, meeting with Nate, meeting with the University of Alberta, meeting with politicians, getting welcomed at the legislature by Minister Rajan Sawhney, who should understand and who should know better when the community was telling her that Sanjay Varma has a direct link in what the violence that is happening with Canadian Sikhs. But they ignored a lot of those things, and a lot of politicians and a lot of people in this country have ignored the warnings that come from community and of people, because people need to understand the Canadian Sikh community has been under surveillance by the Indian state for the past 40 years. This is the 40th anniversary of the Sikh genocide in India. We are particularly vulnerable right now as a community as we remember the genocide of what happened and what happened in November of 1984. And for us, you know, the vindication that comes with these revelations supports everything we've been saying for so long. And for the Conservatives, Pierre Poilievre has absolutely failed to step up at this moment. He couldn't even put out a statement through his own accounts when the RCMP does its press conference. This is not political. It's not political posturing. The RCMP is not doing their press conference at the direction of Justin Trudeau. They're not an instrument of the Liberal Party. They're not an instrument of the political process. And so for Pierre Poilievre to now, 2 days later, say, well, name these people when he knows Trudeau cannot, it's absolute politics. The community will not stand for it. We're absolutely upset that the Conservatives continue to ignore the attempts of the Indian government to interfere in our democratic institutions.
It's got a lot of people wondering, well, is Pierre Poilievre compromised? It's a tough look for him, isn't it?
Well, when we know that the Indian government interfered in the Canadian, in the Conservatives' past leadership, there's strong allegations that exist. When it comes to that leadership campaign, targeting of a potential opponent of Pierre Poilievre's, Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown, and so I think there's a lot of questions. I think there's a lot of questions when it comes to certain MPs that he has that have a track record of anti-Sikh statements, a track record of supporting the Indian government. Harper and Associates is well known to be paid by Indian companies for lobbying in this country. And whether or not that gets put under scrutiny, I think that's a big question that needs to be answered. But absolutely, you have a state that is not only is it targeting the Sikh community through surveillance, through we saw a spate of extortions, arsons, killings, violence that has been taking place that now is traced directly to the government of India. And at the highest levels, we've seen the Washington Post report that some of this direction came from Amit Shah, who is basically Narendra Modi's right hand. He's the president of the BJP. It's extremely troubling. The U.S. just yesterday unsealed, the DOJ unsealed a new superseding indictment when it came to an actual government of India employee, somebody who worked in the cabinet secretariat. He was the one who directed Nikhil Gupta to go and hire a hitman to kill a prominent Sikh activist in the U.S. And so the more evidence that continues to come out about India's activities across the globe targeting the Sikh diaspora, but it's not only that. Social media, you can see India is operating a bot army that is now aligned with the far right to attack immigrants. And we can see the rise of anti-immigrant sentiment in this country. A year ago, Canadians still majority thought that immigrants were an economic benefit to this country and they welcomed immigration. And now a year later, we see this total anti-immigrant movement. People are turned against immigration in a broad way. And that benefits Pierre Poilievre. He's the direct beneficiary of so much of the activity of what the Indian government has been sponsoring and what they've been complicit in.
Sorry, Harman, I'm really naive when it comes to all of this, so thank you for always sharing with us. But can you explain maybe simply the ethnic politics in terms of, so our Liberals and Sikhs, Conservatives and the other side, why won't the Conservatives say anything? Are they activating groups to support them get votes out and win? The politics and the voting behind it? Because I don't understand why they won't get involved. What are the politics?
I would expect that Conservatives would always stand up for the integrity and the sovereignty of our country, and stand up against countries that are interfering. I think like I said, Pierre Poilievre is the direct beneficiary of so much of India's clandestine efforts. The work they're doing on social media to attack Justin Trudeau, to attack him as showing him as a weak leader, of somebody who cannot keep his own citizens safe, that is allowing for extremists in this country to create an unsafe environment. They try to pin all of these extortions and arsons that you saw over the last year across this country on Justin Trudeau's incompetence. And who is the one? Who does that benefit? It benefits Pierre Poilievre, who wants to be seen as being tough on crime, on somebody who's going to be tough on these types of issues. And so for him, they're doing his work for him. There's a direct benefit that the Conservatives are receiving, and yet for them to now capitulate, to absolutely abandon a vulnerable community when we're being, the targets of assassination campaigns, is pathetic. For Pierre Poilievre not to issue a statement from his own account about the RCMP's revelations about how, again, we expelled 6 people from the High Commission because they were engaged in espionage, engaged in surveillance, engaged in direct activities to attack our democratic institutions and to attack Canadian citizens. Like, this is absolutely like
and
bombshell stuff.
If it was another nation like Russia, like we'd have I think there'd be a completely different reaction to this the politics are definitely something that interests me.
Why do you think it would be so different if it was Russia?
I just think it'd be I don't know, and I want Harman to answer. I think it'd be a bigger news story. I think parties would take it more seriously. I think it's taken forever for this to be even taken seriously. And if it was Russia, this would have been way bigger of an issue. Doing this, killing people on our soil. Like, think about it. Just put it on Russia.
Yeah.
Say all the same things, and the reaction would have been completely different. And what do you think the answer is, Harman?
Let's be blunt. When the target of India's campaign are, people with long beards and turbans, it's hard for many people to feel empathy or to feel sympathetic to that, because in their minds, till this date, when they see someone with a big long beard and a turban, they think terrorist. And it's so easy for them to connect what Indian government plays in on is these are the extremists, these are the terrorists. Of course, these guys must be wrong. There must be something more here. And how many times, even in this city, when I would tell people and go to them and tell them that, look, this is what the Indian government has done. There is demonstrated evidence that this is what the Indian government says. They will always say, well, no, this is some other kind of ethnic, tribal, dispute. This has nothing to do with Canadian institutions. Again, and this is why my message is, this is something that all Canadians need to be paying attention to. India was not even going to be a target of the inquiry and the commission unless we petitioned and were granted that approval to have India be part of this. Trudeau's testimony 2 days ago is just about, what comes out of it is just about the government of India. That doesn't happen unless we do the work. For all those other nations, when it comes to Russia, China, Iran, that there was no doubt, there was no question. People had, and part of it is because India, kind of portrays itself as the world's largest democracy. And the difference between Russia and China and Iran on that, makes it very difficult for them to understand why a democratic nation would engage in these types of activities. And what they don't understand is that India's slide into fascism, India's slide away, and the hyper Hindu nationalism that has overtaken that country has changed what that country looks like. But this has been a struggle for the Sikhs for a long time. And why do they target us? Because the Sikh community is the largest faith group without its own separate nation. The Sikh community had its own nation before 1849, prior to colonialism, and then 1947, when India was formed and Pakistan was formed, who suffered? It was the Punjabi Sikhs who suffered during partition. So the movement for Khalistan, the movement for separatism, is a completely normal movement. You wouldn't treat Quebec separatists the way that the Indian government treats Khalistanis, but we are a massive threat to their nation in the sense of they want to maintain control over the billion people that live there. And the Sikhs have always agitated for greater sovereignty, greater federalism, and for independence. And again, I think it's been really convenient for a lot of Canadians to dismiss the evidence against India because that Sikhs are bearded, turbaned men. And we had media personalities in this country who for years exercised their own vendettas against the Sikhs and helped to be agents, provocateurs of the Indian government. The Terry Moleskis of the world. You look at other mainstream journalists, the Terry Glavins, Kim Bolans, their problematic reporting. When the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar happens, the Sikh community steps up and says, this is the Indian government. Kim Bolan and Terry Glavin say, absolutely not. This is their own internal ethnic warfare. what happens? Months later, Trudeau confirms that it's the Indian government. We feel vindication. Where's the apology from those mainstream media outlets? Nowhere. And so the Indian media, starting from the Trudeau trip, when Trudeau goes to India, how many mainstream outlets said, "Oh, this is a disaster," and they would simply pick up narratives from the Indian state that they were filtering through their media, and they would just regurgitate them with no understanding of what was happening, zero understanding, not reaching out to Canadian 6, not asking us what is this about, but using that opportunity to undermine Trudeau, and that's what Pierre Poilievre did.
Jillian in the chat just says, "Damn, Harman bringing the facts." I don't know if you remember. It was September. I know you'll remember, but the date, it was September 19th. Can we load up this TikTok, Johnny, that you put together? September 19th of last year. Harman, you were on the show and we were talking about the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, and we turned it into a 60-second clip, and I want to talk about what happened with it, because well over 500,000 views, and it obviously spread. But here's the point: is you were telling us your mom didn't even want you coming on the show. This is what Harman said on September 19th of last year on Real Talk.
Hardeep Singh Nijjar was warned by Canadian intelligence that he was going to be a target. And he's not the only one. There's many others on that list who have been warned by Canadian intelligence that you're on a list, that your life is in danger. For those others who've been warned, we want them to have security. We want the Canadian intelligence to actually ensure the safety of Canadians. Even today, talking about this, when I left the house this morning, my mother told me not to.
Really?
Absolutely. She asked me where I was going, and I said, I'm going to do an interview about what the Prime Minister said. She said, don't do it. I don't want you to do it. She knows the consequences that we face for speaking out.
So why did you disobey your mom and show up here today?
When Hardeep Singh Nijjar knew that he was going to be killed by the Indian government, he continued to speak out. The day he was assassinated, he talked about it from stage, that no matter what happens, a Sikh will always speak out against oppression. We will always stand up for human rights. That is our duty. That is our obligation. That is our responsibility.
So, that's been watched more than 500,000 times. It's been liked 11,000 times. It's been shared 1,200 times. I don't know if your mom would love that, because the message sure spread further than maybe we even thought it might. But did you feel somewhat vindicated over the developments over this past week or so?
Yeah, I think the vindication is clear for the Canadian Sikh community. For decades, for years, not being believed. It sounds like conspiracy theorists when you say that there's agents operating in our communities on the behest of the Indian government, that the embassy employs security personnel in the guise of consular officials, that the Indian state uses visa approvals to have ordinary citizens spy on other Canadians. They've paid ordinary citizens in Canada to spy on other Canadian citizens. This is something that I heard of when I was a child in the 80s and 90s. People would talk about in community, and I dismissed it as a Canadian-born Sikh. Thought it was conspiracy. But as we went further into this work, as we went through and investigating these issues, you realize the truth of it. So after 40 years of facing this, to finally have the recognition from government, from the RCMP, from police, from our Prime Minister, is absolute vindication for the Sikh community. But there's so much more that needs to be done.
I appreciate you bringing this. The live chat just came alive in the last 10 minutes, and I appreciate your insights into this. Gabe just says you're a very brave person, Harman. Do you ever hesitate to speak out like this?
I think, going back to what I said all those months ago, when we see someone like Shaheed by Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who, knowing the threat to his life, willing to still continue to speak out against the Indian government, knowing and willing to speak out against oppression, willing to stand up for human rights, it inspires a generation of Canadian Sikhs to continue to do that work. I think Sikhs draw their strength from their faith. They draw strength from, understanding that it's our duty to speak out and stand up against oppression wherever we see it, whether that's in this country, whether that's in India. And so for all of us as Sikhs, it's something that's part of our duty, and we look at it as part of that responsibility and obligation.
Shout out Harman Kandola. But I've got to get you into the green room. The cinnamon buns aren't going to eat themselves. We've got Bryan Baeumler hanging out. But before we go, it's the 95th anniversary KO of the Persons case. Take us almost 100 years back.
Yes, so that's why I'm wearing pink today. So today, 95th anniversary, the Persons case was a very monumental legal case in Canada where women were given the right to serve in Senate. But much more than that, they were viewed as persons, because before that they were not viewed as qualified persons. And so it opened up a whole legal avenue for not only women, but all human rights in our country. And so women across and all people across the country are going to be going to pink teas today. That's what suffragettes used to do back in the day to kind of conspire and figure out ways to get this law passed. So we're going to be hosting one at the YWCA today to celebrate the 95th anniversary and to talk about human rights. And that's why, you know, Harman, when I hear you talk, human rights are under fire all across the world right now, not only in this country, but all across this world. And we have to always be on guard and always standing up for the rights of all.
What are some of the fights today? Like, take us into some
reproductive
of the advocacy
rights.
work
We're talking about abortion, the fact that women's rights. You know, we see rights sliding all across the world. We see folks just kind of using, like, you know, when you hear people talking about eating the dogs or eating the cats, if Trump's talking about that, that's code for we don't want immigrants and we don't care about people and we don't care about, you know, people legally coming into a country. Like, drill down. When you hear these sound bites, they mean a lot more than what you think they do. And people have to think long and hard about the people that are serving in our elected positions, because the way they treat people really matters, and you have to be holding them to account. We should not be sliding back. It's 2024. And while we have come so far from the person's case, I do see a big slide back in rights, particularly when we talk about reproductive rights and just all sorts of rights across the world. So a great day to celebrate it, but there's so much more to do, and I'm rolling up my sleeves just like Harman.
Yeah, you are. The fight is never done.
Well, what I was going to say is I met these two because of politics. We met Harman in a parking lot in Red Deer. And Katherine, it was just like a terrible story she blames me for. But we need good people running in politics. And I'm looking at two of the best and really proud to be friends with you guys. But I think you should both consider running again. Seriously.
I appreciate that, Jenny.
Yeah. So are you?
I
want to get him on the record.
I just want to say that I appreciate you always standing on the right side of these issues. You've always kind of given us a platform to be able to talk, openly and without fear about these issues. And I think, again, for me, I get emotional sometimes when I think about the sacrifices of so many great human rights defenders, people who stood up to make this a better country and a country that actually believes in equality. And I think, that work that Kay was talking about and what we see when the degradation of human rights is really important. But thank you for always being on the right side of these issues.
That's kind of you to say. I want to thank the three of you for being here and being candid as always. Tony has kicked $5 into our YouTube super chat. She says, please get a non-alcoholic beer for Harman. She says, mad respect for your passion and conviction, Harman. She says we need more people to be vocal about this. I think I'm going to get you, I'll buy you a pint of Tomorrow's Happiness at Arcadia Brewing Company.
Okay.
They've just released their Tomorrow's Happiness, which is a nice de-alcoholized beer. They do a great job there. Alberta Girl says, I never imagined I would ever support Justin Trudeau, but he seems to be the only one standing up to these countries, and this election is turning into a national security election. Mark says, let's talk more about our right to be safe from oil and gas risks on one's own property. Those have gone to shit, along with compensation rights. I love this, another 420 donation, $4.20. Shout out to Travis, who says Harman is obviously well informed and well fired up. You can let us know what you think in the live chat to talk at ryanjesperson.com. Those of you that are watching this live or maybe listening on the Mixler live streaming audio app presented by California Closets. That's Jenny Adams from the Adams Agency, Harman Kandola, a lawyer and obviously very well involved in community with the Newcomer Center and the World Sick Organization, and Katherine O'Neill. We love her and call her KO. She's the CEO of the YWCA Edmonton. They've got their pink tea going on today, and you can learn more on their website. We'll link to that in the show notes. You guys go hit up the cinnamon buns, and I'm going to hang out with a big-time TV star, some big shot, Bryan Baeumler.
I'm staying for the first 2 minutes.
You want to stick around?
I'm staying for the first 2 minutes.
Why don't you stick around? He'll come in here. You hang out with us, and Brian's in town for the Edmonton Home Show. But first, I want to let you know that this show happens with the amazing support of the team at California Closets, who are the absolute best in the business at what they do. You can find them online at californiaclosets.ca. We worked with them, I think it was like 10 years ago now, and what they did to transform our family's, our living room, basically our entertainment center, on the budget that we were working with, and then what they also did for the closet in our primary bedroom, unbelievable. Carrie loves it every single day. I just marvel at how our house is super old, so the closets are tiny, but they just worked magic with it, making the most out of a small space. They can do that, or hey, if you've got tons of square footage, they can rock and roll with that as well. It comes with a lifetime guarantee. The consultation free can be booked today at californiaclosets.ca. And hey, speaking of Gordon, Edgar, Downey, May he rest in peace. Yesterday, the anniversary of his passing, and tomorrow night, that's Saturday the 19th of October, we're going to be gathering big hip fans in Edmonton, Calgary, and Kelowna to celebrate Gedfest in Gord's honor. We're going to raise money for local cancer charities. In Edmonton, we're going to be at Midway Music Hall. In Calgary, they're going to be at the Palace Theatre. We've got Canada's best tragically hip tribute bands. In Edmonton, we're going to be raising money for the Alberta Cancer Foundation and for the Ben Stelter Foundation. They've got different cancer charities in all three locales. I encourage you, if you're a hip fan or if you just love to party, come join us at Gedfest. Find out more at gedfest.ca. Well, this is pretty damn cool. We've got, I think probably one of the more popular builders in the world. He's a proud dad. He's a television star, and he's in our home city of Edmonton for the home show. Bryan Baeumler, you've been a great friend of this show since we launched, and it's really nice to have you back in studio. Welcome.
Well, it's great to be back. This is I like this table as well.
What do you think about this table? This is urban timber. You'll make their day if a guy like Bryan Baeumler tells us what he likes about it.
It's nice. The epoxy.
It's white oak.
Table. Yeah, I love it.
And then did you see the base? The base is it's apparently about 100 years old. It's an actual hand crank. It actually works. You can raise it and lower it. And
I like that.
I don't know what they would have used it for. It feels like maybe like a butcher's table or something a mechanic might have used or something.
You never know.
I never know. I have no idea.
I have a good segue for us.
Okay.
So
I thought we just had a really good
That's a good segue.
That was a
You're
great
gonna
table
segue into the next segue.
Segue. So we were just talking about good people running in politics. And
don't even.
Yeah. So anyway, Bryan has a political science degree. Bryan and I have been friends for 13 years, I think. So Bryan has a political science degree. We had him in Ottawa a couple years ago for a men's mental health initiative on Parliament Hill. And we sat having breakfast, and Bryan's like, I have an idea. I would like to run to be Prime Minister of Canada. And I was like, oh my God, here I go. What more can I do for you? So we sat there for an hour coming up with your campaign strategy?
We did.
And what would it be?
And I said only if I won, I could say no. I was just kidding.
I was just kidding.
Just kidding.
They don't give you that option. You got.
I don't know.
You don't even want to look at this. He doesn't even want to get into
it.
He won't get into it. Because you know why?
He will in the green room.
People that watch your show, they vote for Pierre Poilievre. They vote for Justin Trudeau. They vote for Jagmeet Singh.
They vote for everybody.
They don't vote. They don't. So why would why would it make sense for you to muddy the waters and start sharing political opinions?
half of my audience?
It might be career suicide.
I've said when I am ready to retire, maybe I'll share my opinions more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would that be good or bad advice?
When he retires?
Yeah,
it'll be great.
I've
heard it's going to go one of two ways. It's either going to go, oh, okay, there he is, or it's going to be 10 years from now. People are going to say, whatever happened to that guy? He just disappeared.
Often in my car before we hop into an interview, I'm like, okay, but don't say that on air, right?
No, this is never true.
Okay, but just don't mention that in the interview.
With a guy like you, do you know what I think? You know what I think the problem might be? I think the problem might be that you're used to being like a take charge kind of a guy. You come in. Where was this in the Bahamas that you bought this big huge? Remind me. You guys brought a big huge resort, and then you turned the whole thing around. It did like a massive, huge,
we sure did.
Major renovation.
Inefficiency drives me crazy.
Yeah, so you're used to coming in and saying we're going to change this and that, and this isn't happening anymore. And then correct me if you disagree, but I think you might get into politics and realize it's a lot harder to change the machine, to drain the swamp. It's a lot harder to make change than you might think.
There's too many managers.
I tried to tell him how it wouldn't work, but it was going to be a great reality TV show. That was the idea.
It would be a very eye-opening, interesting television show.
And then you were going to hand the reins to me.
So the home show.
So anyway, I'll let you guys do your thing. I'm going to have a cinnamon bun.
I would love.
Okay, go Friesen Brothers cinnamon bun. Let us know. But what would you love?
I do enjoy politics. I think we have some fundamental problems here. That we elect someone to go into a room and ask 400 other people permission to do something.
That's democracy.
But when I hire a CEO or a general manager for one of my companies, I give him the reins. He's driving. I hire him based on the merits he's applied for and the skills he tells me he has. And if he demonstrates, I'm going to do these 10 things and he does them, great, you get a raise. If he doesn't, great, you're fired.
You're fired.
Next. But you can't hire someone and then not give them the power to do the job that they were hired to do.
Well, this is why they got to get a majority government. You see what's happening right now. Justin Trudeau gets hung up. He's got to get permission and support from Jagmeet Singh or from the Bloc Québécois to make things happen. And we're not doing a very good job of not talking politics, by the way.
It's fine. It's fine. And you know, when we get into an election and when I think any of our politicians get the opportunity to have some face time in the media, they need to talk about the solutions, not each other. It's like I'm a dad. I have 4 children. I can watch that at home. I don't want to watch it I don't want to listen to a politician, talk garbage about all the other politicians. Tell me what you're going to do.
Yeah. What's your vision?
Yeah.
What does the future look like if you have a say, if you have some influence?
Yeah.
You got a new show coming out yourself, which I'm sure you want people
It's
to watch.
called
Building Baeumler.
Building Baeumler.
What's that all about? What's going to be different about this one?
It's a little more documentary. We're starting to get a little more honest in the process of building, and it's really, this is about entrepreneurialism. It's about the kids getting older, getting involved in the business. It's more than just here's the picture of what we want to build, and watch us build it. It's more of how did we decide to do this? Why did we decide? How are we going to fund this? Where are we going to find the people? What are the issues we're having with the staff? What do we do with the kids while we're here? What's going sideways in our marriage? How do we do this? And there was a hurricane, a tornado, COVID. How do we navigate all that? So it's a little more. It's a lot more behind the curtain.
Do you have to get you got to get the whole family to sign on to this? It's different than being like you've got your own personality, you get your endorsements, people want your stamp of approval on their appliances or their building products, their hammers, their whatever. But to get your wife in to be talking about the issues in the marriage, or to get the kids to be growing up on camera, that's a whole new level of buy-in.
Well, I mean, the kids were very close to being born on camera.
Yeah.
They didn't exist when I shot the pilot for Disaster DIY.
It's pretty wild, eh?
It is. It's crazy. So to them, it's really normal. That's kind of what they know. But we certainly, there's days when the kids say, I'm not doing that. Okay. We're not going to be like, no, sit down and pretend to enjoy this. We say, okay, fine. Find something else to do.
But, I mean, it's not every family. Look at this, People.com, People Magazine. Folks might have heard it. Come on, are you being serious? Yeah, you're on People. Yeah.
Dude, it's funny because
this was out a month ago. Bryan and Sarah Baeumler's 4 children, all about Quentin, Charlotte, Lincoln, and Josephine. People's reporting on the 4 kids in the family. That's exposure that a lot of people might say the celebrity's probably nice, the influence, obviously the high-end potential of what you're doing, but I can understand how that might be tough for families.
I would love a bit of anonymity, but I don't think about it. I mean, I'm down south working and doing whatever, and then I'll get here and pull into the gas station, and I hear my name being screamed, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And then I remember, yeah. So
you can't leave the house in your pajamas to go fill up with gas. You're not supposed to do it. It's bad for the brand.
Gone to Starbucks in my slippers after dropping the kids off at school.
He's just like us.
Yeah. I think the difference is, though, it's not the Kardashians. It's not scripted. It's not a Hollywood thing. It's just the people down the street that build stuff, and you get to watch.
Vamp is predicting that Charlotte's going to take over the entire empire in our live chat here. Do you have some of your kids that are keen on second gen personalities?
Well, Quentin right now is actually at the hotel working there, learning a little bit and helping out with the water sports. Charlotte is this weekend with Sarah looking at university. To do business and hotel management. So
wow.
that could be.
That would make sense.
We have so many different facets of the business now, though, that we're hoping. I don't even know if we're hoping. I mean, we've spent the last 20 years removing barriers for the kids, allowing them to travel and explore and learn things and find the things that they love to do. So Charlotte's interested in that a little bit. Lincoln just asked me yesterday, when can I go work for the construction company? I want to own that one day. I said, okay, well, I'm not giving it to you. You can buy it. He's a bit young still. He'll be 14 in November, but
and you're still a young man.
Yeah, I'm young. A young 50.
Are the joints starting to feel it? All the swinging, all those hammers.
I mean, starting. That was you got to keep moving. You got to keep moving. But I beat myself up for about 20 years. That's the funny thing, I posted something the other day. I don't even think about it. It's just life. And somebody made the classic comment, must be nice to be rich. And my reply was, yeah, no, it is. But the 20 years of 100-hour weeks and working 7 days a week and not seeing my kids for a month at a time, that was a bitch. Mm-hmm. But now, yeah, it's nice that I'm old and tired and I can enjoy a few things. But you have to make those sacrifices. So we're trying to teach the kids that now.
I know a little bit about TV production. You know more, but I do know that it's relatively unusual and pretty cool when you can have a series after a series after a series, all of them experience success without really interruptions between them. Yeah. Kind of pick and choose your path, I'm assuming, to a certain degree. You wouldn't do it if it wasn't worthwhile. Yeah. So what's been the secret to that? Like, obviously, the public's appetite for what they want. If I knew the secret to that, I'd own the network. Look at some of the highest profile. Like, I see home reno, guys and gals in the same way as like I used to obsess over the Food Network. Like in my early 20s, I like learned by watching. But those shows have had to change, and not everyone's been able to sustain public prominence or celebrity or success for like 20 years.
Yeah, right? I mean, if I had the answer to that, I would own all the networks.
Well, but you are doing it.
It's kind of I guess we are doing it. It's the secret sauce that nobody knows the recipe.
Is that right?
And I think, to be honest, I didn't get into television to be known. If I never had appeared in any of the shows and just my T-shirt and my company logo was there, I would have been happy. I mean, I've used it as a vehicle to expand my business and to be entrepreneurial. That was the plan from day one. I guess a side effect of that is being recognized. But I don't know what the sauce is, to be honest. I think it's just being authentic and like, this is what we're doing. And we do things that some people would think we're crazy. I mean, when we said we're going to pack the kids up and move to an island in the Bahamas, everyone said, you're crazy. You can't do that. And we were like, what? Just
best movie you ever made?
Yeah. I mean, for the kids especially. We really learned, I think, exposing your kids and coming back to Canada now, having lived outside of Canada on and off a little bit. I mean, this is still home. It'll always be home. And we have a home, and our office and our headquarters, everything, we're based in Burlington. So we've got 21 or 23 companies based there. So this will always be home. But now we have multiple homes in multiple countries. So we have different experiences. The kids have experienced different cultures, different attitudes, different everything. And I think a big problem in Canada today is that a lot of people don't do that. Our kids know that on a small island in the Bahamas, where some people don't have windows and people don't have finished floors in their homes and they don't have cars, they may not have shoes, they might have to get up in the morning and go catch their food. They still want to pay their bills. They still want to have birthday parties on the weekend. Mom and dad still love their kids. They still take care of their parents. Everybody is the same. So they have learned that regardless of what the media, may paint the picture of, or the, what you see on social or whatever it may be, our kids know that the vast majority of people are just like us. Might eat slightly different food and sound a little bit different or whatever, but they're very comfortable traveling and fitting into different cultures.
I love that.
I think it's been the best thing. We showed up on the island. We thought, okay, we got these 4 little, pasty white kids from Canada. How's this going to go?
Right.
And they opened the door on the boat, and they were like, oh, there's kids. And they were gone. And, all of a sudden they got best friends. They're having sleepovers. We've got god kids now. And, so it's just incredible to open the gates and let them be feral.
I love that. Feral. Sylvia, you don't have to go into this if you don't want to, but she says, Brian's also honest and good at what he does, not like the other guy in Ontario. Whoo, Sylvia.
Which,
I don't know.
There is no other guy.
There's probably a few, but I don't want to start naming names. I'm going to get sued if I do. Had a tough year here. I haven't even talked to you about this, like real life stuff. Mental health factored in, lost my best friend in the whole wide world. And just is like the fucking worst, man.
Yeah.
I had like the toughest year of my life. And, but we've like one thing I'm like, I know I can control, or one thing I can do about this is continue to have conversations, and a show called Real Talk, better damn well have real conversations.
Damn right.
What's kind of like this, what prompts, or what's the impetus, or what sort of like birthed your desire to work in mental health and to use your name and your platform and the spotlight that you bring to that specific instance? Like why mental health for you?
Well, in my early 20s, like I was 20 or 21. I think it started at 15, 16 intermittently. I was borderline agoraphobic. I almost put the lights out, throwing Ativan, chewing Ativan and bourbon to make the anxiety stop. I had 24-hour a day, 7 days a week panic attacks. I would leave the house, and I still remember this. I'd get up in the morning and say, I'm going to go for a run today. I'm going to get healthy. I'd get half a block away, and I'd stop in front of the paramedics shop where my brother worked, and I'd just hang around there waiting for my heart to stop. It was debilitating. And the fact that I ended up in a public space and standing on a stage in front of thousands of people, that's been the best exposure therapy. But if you watch Disaster DIY from my pilot, the first 3 seasons, guaranteed 90% of those scenes I was in full panic mode. I dropped dead at any second.
Wow.
It was unreal. And it's I've learned to control it. It's a part of me. It's always kind of there, but it's like a friend that travels with me.
Yeah.
I just don't let them sit in the seat beside me,
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. That means a lot. And I think that when people that come across they kind of got it all together.
Yeah, nobody's got it all together.
No, but you know what I mean? It's a very powerful message, and I think that you never know the one person that needs to hear that today.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate you saying it. Yeah, you're going to be at the Edmonton Expo Center this weekend if people are listening to this the day we're doing it.
Yep.
From October 18th through the 20th. It's the Edmonton Fall Home Show. People can check out edmontonfallhomeshow.com. What's one cool thing you're doing there or something that people experience if they come say hi?
A lot of Q&A. It's a peek behind the curtain, but a big thing I want to talk about, I'm dad now. I want to tell you, you're doing it wrong. You're spending your money in the wrong places. You're losing money yourself. We are screwing up the housing. We've got a massive housing crisis here, and there's a very simple fix. Live within your means. Spend your money in the right places so that you will have money to spend in other places so that you don't have to see someone enjoying their life and be jealous of that. Because that'll be you.
Where is an area where people are blowing their money? Where is one of the dumbest expenditures that you see happening time and time
Cosmetics. Again? I have this great talk I do, and the crowd gets it. I love to teach in metaphors and experience. And I always say I look at a house the same way I look at a lady. When I was courting Sarah, I saw her across the room, and I thought, I like the looks of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you set up that first appointment with the realtor. You're going out for a coffee with Sarah, and you like the way things are going. And then there's a deposit on the table. Now you're at dinner and a show and maybe a hotel a weekend away. Things are getting a little more expensive. And all of a sudden, there's this big event where you're sitting at a little bistro table signing a contract. There's a lot of money's been spent. There's commitments on the table. You are now contractually obligated to this house or this spouse. And you wake up the morning after the honeymoon, right? Everything's great. You load your furniture in. You're so happy you've got the best thing you've ever thought. You wake up the next morning and what do you see? All the makeup is on the pillow, right? So it's the same thing when you realize you bought this place and you get your first heating bill. $600 a month to heat this thing. Wait a minute, I've got mold in the basement. My roof is leaking. I've got no insulation in the attic. There's asbestos in the walls. What did I sign myself up for? So we have to look at houses the same way we look at people. It doesn't matter what you look like if you've got stage 4 anything, and you're on your deathbed. It doesn't matter. No, nobody cares. That's the only thing that matters. So you better make sure that you choose something that is healthy, that's going to last a long time, that has built-in value, that's affordable and efficient to own and operate and be with, and make sure you look beyond that cover, because you can get up tomorrow and put more cosmetics on. I dragged Sarah down into the excavation when we built our first home, and I dug the hole and I poured the footings and I brought her down. I said, look, 36 inch by 12 inch, 3 rows of rebar, 35 MPa concrete. We're on solid shale. And she said, so? Mm-hmm. I said, what do you mean so? If we screw this up, nothing else matters. This is the most important. This is what holds this whole thing up. So we have to stop valuing, it's big, it's shiny, I want it. And we have to start valuing, it doesn't cost a lot to operate. It's not going to cost a lot to maintain over the years and replace things. And I'm actually going to make some money when I sell this thing. And I can be house proud in the fact that I can afford to live here.
I get why people dig you, man. And that's not a foundation joke either. You can follow Bryan Baeumler on Instagram with a few 100,000 other people at Bryan Baeumler. We'll link to it. And, of course, you can find him at the official Edmonton Fall Home Show this weekend. That's the 18th to the 20th of October at edmontonfallhomeshow.com. I already know that the title of the highlight we're going to pull of this and put on YouTube, Houses and Spouses.
There you
Save
go.
your money.
I love it.
So says Bryan Baeumler. Hey, get your ass into that green room, grab a mimosa, grab a Freezing Brothers cinnamon bun. I'll be there in a second. But first, we have a tradition as we wrap up every week here on the show, and this is courtesy of our friends at the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. A chance for you to send us your hottest takes. These are all real emails to talk@ryanjesperson.com. We want you to bring the heat. It's the Flamethrower, presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. This from Daintre, who writes in to say Pierre Poilievre's refusal to obtain a security clearance as leader of the opposition is an alarming display of arrogance and irresponsibility for somebody who constantly criticizes the government, aspires to be prime minister. Poilievre's reluctance to engage with sensitive national security matters raises serious concerns about his fitness for leadership. This isn't about politics. It's kind of what Harman just said. It's about safeguarding Canada's interests. By refusing to equip himself with the necessary info, he's willingly and willfully choosing ignorance at a time when foreign interference and cybersecurity threats are at an all-time high. How can Canadians trust a leader who refuses to be fully informed? That from Daintre. How about this one from Garth, who says, hello, my communist talk show host friend. All right, Garth. What an absolute disaster we're watching unfold, he says, sitting poolside while our prime minister flails around, grasping at his soggy, eco-friendly straws. Justin Trudeau, the guy who claims to know all about the Conservatives' alleged connections to foreign governments, somehow missed the memo on his own party members doing the same thing. And what did he do? Absolutely nothing. Let him run on like business as usual. This is the same guy who openly admitted he doesn't read briefings, but suddenly he's a master of intel when it comes to Conservatives. How convenient. Does he expect us to believe that the last 2 years of evasion, distraction, and political theater were all just a heroic effort to save the Conservatives? Give me a break. Garth says, I've long disagreed with Trudeau's policies, but at least I had some respect for the fact that he stood up to lead. Leadership's tough, but a leader who's deceitful, neglecting his duties, I have zero respect for that. And while we're at it, how would Trudeau feel if another country started backing Quebec separatists? There it is. In this country, if you protest Canadian issues, you'd be trampled and have your assets frozen. But if you stand up and protest against changes to another country's borders, that's somehow okay. Don't go filling Monday's slot yet, Jespo. You might need to throw a bone to a friend soon to return from their short stint in the PMO. I think that's a reference to Supriya Dwivedi. Garth says, one love as always. Thanks, buddy. How about this one from Rod, who says, Jespo, regarding Danielle Smith's presser about the Alberta government's $7 million taxpayer-funded promo campaign for the fossil fuel industry, stop the federal emissions cap, $7 million of our dollars to subsidize the promotion of fossil fuels in Alberta. For what? What about the homeless individuals in this province? What about paying for a portion of our municipal tax increases? What about all the fees that are owed to Edmonton and other municipalities? What about reactivating provincial programs to help homeowners reduce their emissions? What about the uptake of EVs in Alberta? Come on, with the UCP government plans for infinite growth of oil and gas without strong legislative limiting production, let alone emissions, Alberta will never meet Paris targets. Rod, I don't think they care about that. He says we should be asking for production caps to discourage the creation of stranded assets as the world is now moving swiftly toward a fossil-free future. And hey, did you catch Emil and Ken, the two retired foresters that were on the show, the loggers that were critical? They called the Jasper fire 7 years ago, and they're taking aim at the politicians, Parks Canada, who they said did nothing. Well, Bob Covey, who works at the Jasper Local, they do an amazing job with local news coverage in Jasper, wrote in, and he wrote us a flamethrower. He's a Jasper-based journalist and columnist, and he had some thoughts after that Wednesday interview. He spent the better part of 20 years in Jasper covering Jasper's relationship with wildfire, and so he's taking issue with how national park officials and local authorities have been blamed for not doing enough to stop the disaster, and he says he's got no time for people trying to make political hay off the crisis in the community. Well, here's the deal. Bob, I'm not reading your email. I'm not going to read it. And people will say, why in the hell wouldn't you read it, Jasper? Well, that's because I insist that Bob joins us on the show and says it himself, so don't miss Thursday, October 24th, when Bob Covey from the Jasper Local joins us. You can fire up your flamethrower anytime to talk@ryanjesperson.com. Proud proudly presented by the DQs in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, and Baseline Road. Try the Flamethrower when you tell them Real Talk sent you. Thanks for making time for us this week, Real Talkers. We appreciate it. We're going to take a look at an interview live from Lebanon on Monday. We're also going to find out why a guy in BC built a black bear gate into his fence. We're going to talk to Michael Corrin about his new book, a minister, a broadcaster, fascinating insights on faith. We're going to check in with the Calgary Arena debate, a great feature from Alberta Views, and of course, as mentioned, Bob Covey from the Jasper Local. Have a great weekend. Thanks for subscribing to Real Talk on podcasts and on YouTube, and we'll talk to you again soon. One love.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers,